The stories and not the headlines.
Because we believe that stories can change the world.
Get ready because the show starts now. Hey there, Speropictures crew. Welcome back to Coming Attractions. I'm your host, Joy Thayer.
And I'm here also, Mr. Joy, and we are here to talk about just another film that we've watched. We're doing some research on some documentaries, right. And so we've been watching interesting documentaries recently, and we thought this one would be kind of a fun one to talk about. Yeah, because I'd never heard of it before.
No, Alex was the one that shared this with us. We had watched...
Producer Alex watches a lot of obscure movies.
You think this was obscure?
This was, I mean, it's not, I think it's a well done documentary, but it's not one that I had heard of, and other people that we know that like documentaries hadn't heard of it either. So,
but I think that part of the reason is I wouldn't consider it a documentary on the basis of what documentaries
about it. Yeah.
All right, so we watched American Animals,
and come to find out that it was actually directed by a guy that directed The Imposter, which is another documentary I really like.
And we just watched.
I watched it years ago. Our friend Jason Head, who is the cinematographer on Nefarious.
Stronger Than Car.
And Stronger Than Car. He was the director on Stronger Than Car. And so we, pass movies back and forth kind of a thing. And The Imposter was one of his favorite documentaries. And so watched it years ago and then rewatched it recently. But I didn't even know when we watched American Animals, that we sat down to watch American Animals, that there was even made by the same team. But now knowing that, I can see the parallels for sure.
So we have a documentary that's coming out in September.
Yes.
That we're working on right now.
That we can't talk about yet.
We can't talk about.
I don't know why you're talking about it.
Well, I didn't tell them anything about it. You guys don't know anything about it.
Hey, we're making something.
If you know something, leave it in the comments below.
Yeah.
So we have a documentary coming out. So we had to do some research.
We're doing some research.
And what do we want for the styles? What do we want to do? What storytelling techniques do we want to use? And this and that.
And this one that we're working on is going to be different than we've worked on before.
Right.
Because we actually are going to be doing some reenactments, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Which is where American Animals kind of came into play when Alex was saying, you should watch this and get some ideas and suggestions.
Yeah.
What I want to know, what did you think of the name of the film?
I thought the name was, I like the name. I think that anytime that you can add America into a name is great because, it's just especially, even for Americans, because we're, rather narcissistic about our country, we like, our name. And then around the world, people are always kind of tuned in to what America's doing. And so, I think it's a great name. And it's catchy. The title art was really, the poster was cool. Didn't even really know much about what it was.
No,
but it still had
suggestive.
But it had there was something intriguing about it. But anyway, so why don't we just go ahead and play the trailer?
You ever feel like you're waiting for something to happen?
It pains me to see you embarrass your father.
But you don't know what it is. You're in, or you're out. That thing that could make your life special. You're in, or you're out. You're in, or you're out.
How can I tell you if I'm in or I'm out without you telling me the first thing about what I might be in or out of?
This would be something dangerous and very exciting.
This library is home to the most valuable book in the United States.
$12 million. You really need to see how easy this is going to be.
Oh, you know this from all your previous heists?
Can I just say how dumb this entire thing is?
How do you know no one's gonna get hurt? I don't want you waking up years from now wondering what could have happened and who you could have been.
Are you sure you're okay?
Oh, this is my life. This isn't some game.
Can you please not touch the model things?
Let's do this.
It essentially follows four guys who are doing a heist of Audubon, like the big gigantic books of these prints of Audubon. When and I can't remember his first name, but he was a famous American painter, and set out to paint all of the birds, and so the art that is on the poster, of course, is borrowed from that, and then of course, it goes through this, kind of it's very heisty, right? So it's like, notes of Ocean's 11 or some of the old Rat Pack Sinatra movies that has that kind of feel of, we're going to make a plan to steal something, and get away with it. And so the interesting thing,
Italian Job.
Yeah, the Italian Job. Yeah. Like that kind of stuff. And so the interesting thing was how most of the film is actually a scripted movie.
It is a movie.
It's like
what threw me off.
I mean, it's like 80%, I would say, and like 20% documentary, maybe 25%. Very, very, like the interviews were very sparse. There was actually a really long point, where it was like there was no injection from the interviews at all for like probably like 30 minutes or more.
I think that's when I turned to you and I said, we can use some of these concepts for our film, but we don't have the budget to make a movie. We have a budget to make a documentary with some reenactments.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that overall, what was interesting to me from the standpoint of an independent film, inexpensive locations, things like that, I think that they did a really good job creating the scope. So like in the part of the movie, they go to New York, they meet with somebody, and they're driving into New York. You see the skyline through the car, that kind of a thing. But when you break down the shots that were actually in New York, it was fairly simple. Like but they did a good job in giving that scope and that feel.
But they casted it really well.
They did, yeah. So they had Evan Peters was the Quicksilver in the old X-Men, and then he was in WandaVision as an alternate reality Quicksilver. And then there's Barry Keoghan, who's in a lot of weird movies, but he was in Dunkirk and Chernobyl. Yeah, Chernobyl. So that was, and so I was like, you see those people, and it was really cool because typically documentaries cast nobodies, right? There's not a lot of like named actors, but it was really interesting that this was billed as a documentary, but then also it had the cast up on the poster, and that was very unique. You don't see that very often. Yeah, I've never seen it before. If it's happened before, if other people can point to other documentaries, I would say that I guess it's kind of similar to the Band of Brothers in that way, right? So there's some like documentary elements to that, and they would build that as a documentary. But then David Schwimmer was in it, and famous actors playing these roles.
Well, and you were saying that you really liked The Imposter, which also did something similar. Right. The Imposter wasn't so much a movie like this was, like because this you could have just taken out the documentary pieces and had a full movie. Right. Here, where The Imposter was telling a guy's story, And then you had an actor playing him, but he wasn't a well-known actor.
Right.
That was playing him. And then sometimes you would see the actor moving his mouth, but the interviewee was actually the one saying the words.
Just some cool ways that they're blending reenactment with the interviews. And Bart Layton, who was the director on both of those movies, The Imposter and American Animals, he is creative in that way, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to watch it, was because we're going to be doing some reenactments, and I don't want to just cut to a reenactment and hear somebody's voice. It's like, well, if we can do something fun and creative, where you can kind of blend them together. And that was one of the things about American Animals that they did really well, like you mentioned. Like typically, the actor, how did you say it? The actor playing that, you don't typically cast like a well-known actor for the person and have the person, in there. And it's kind of hard to do that so that you don't break the suspension of disbelief. Right. But what was cool about the way that they did American Animals was they were kind of playing a little bit. One of the themes was our perceptions of the past, and our perceptions of how the story was
how we remember things.
How we remember things. And so the two main guys were kind of relating
the story from their perspective.
From their perspective. And so like at one point there was a scene where, I told him, in a car, and we were driving, and then the other guy's like, oh, no, we were standing outside on a porch at a party.
I'm pretty sure he told me about it at Rich's party. I remember it being cold.
Book? In what world can a book be worth $12 million?
It's not really a book. It's more like a collection of paintings.
I think I told him about it in the car. Maybe November. It was cold.
I still don't understand how a book could be worth $12 million.
The way that they cut those two scenes together was really cool.
Yeah.
And the real guy all of a sudden showed up in the car when one of them went out to the gas station. That was kind of a cool way to play.
It was really cool
between reality and reenactment.
Because the actor looked over at the interviewee now.
Right. Now
he's like, is that how you remember it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so and then they just went on, and it was really great.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was really cool.
Now you were saying earlier that the director was inspired by another movie to make this one.
So apparently the director was inspired by Dog Day Afternoon, which is a classic Al Pacino heist gone wrong.
I don't think I ever watched that one.
No, I've watched half of it, and it was kind of one of those. Well, it's one of those movies that's kind of on a list of movies that you should watch if you're a film buff student person. And so, I go back every once in a while and try to, tick those boxes off. And I've got halfway through, and I can't remember why. I think it was just like I was at the house by myself and was watching a movie, and then I don't know, you showed up from Costco and I had to go out and get groceries and never got back to it. So it was probably one of those types of situations. But essentially, the reason why that was inspiring to the director was because it was just a normal guy kind of finding himself in a bad situation that ultimately ends up going wrong. And so these guys, these students, they end up trying to do something like a heist where they're stealing from this very rare book collection.
Yeah.
And
they have to find out what happens.
Yeah, you guys are going to have to watch it and find out what happens. But they have each of them have different reasons for motivations for why they're doing what they're doing. But it doesn't end well.
No, that's hurting me.
I'm sorry, just relax, all right?
I gotta
We're here
get
for the
out.
books.
No.
We're not here to hurt you. Just relax. So I'll be over in a second.
I mean, it was just really well done. Like the movie was really well done. It's really enjoyable to watch. And the techniques, the guy knows what he's doing from a filmmaking perspective. And so, like, for example, them walking in as old men, disguised to go with this heist. And so when a character in a movie is moving from left to right, it just means that things are going well. Things are happy. So in Despicable Me, he's traveling from right to left. Everything's awesome. and then
from left to right.
Sorry, from left to right.
Yep.
Sorry, from left to right. And then when everything starts going bad and everything's gloomy, he's actually going from right to left. And so that is that's a filmmaking technique, and this was used in American Animals. And really, it's interesting because psychologically, these are things that most audiences don't know. Like a film student or somebody that understands filmmaking would catch that.
Yeah.
But the audience wouldn't know that. But it does actually play psychologically with you because there's just this kind of a normal intuition towards it.
Something that's interesting that when I think that comes to my mind is I studied sales for years because I sold cars, and I've done sales for a long time. But when we were learning how to sell a car, you were taught not to take left-hand turns. And so you were taught to
That's interesting.
drive out, and you always did right-hand turns because it made people feel safe because you never had to cross traffic. If you had to cross traffic, you could cause anxiety in the person that you're trying to sell a car to, and then you would lose control of the conversation as well as potentially control of the car. So you would go all right-hand turns, and so you try to figure out pathways that would make people feel comfortable and safe. So psychologically, you would be having a conversation with them the whole time, and they're not trying to side seat drive. They're more interested in the car. So again, what you're talking about with the film techniques is we're putting people at ease on something that is a normal psychological thing, is things are moving forward. We're going from left to right. And so when we cross that and go from right to left, there's something inside of us that's going, oh, we're going backwards. This isn't a good thing. We're not feeling safe. But we don't in either one of those cases, I never told people, I'm like, hey, I'm going to take all right-hand turns so you feel comfortable. I just did it as a natural thing that I was taught to do.
You wouldn't sell a lot of cars in England.
Well, in that case, you would, because you're not crossing traffic. You would go all left turns.
You would go left.
And so I would just have to, I'd have to reorient
Yeah, and that's
myself.
interesting too, because it's like psychologically, is that just a natural tendency that we have that's been kind of hard baked into our tendency to take right-hand turns, stay on the right-hand side of the road. In America, we read from left to right. Yeah. So in this movie, when they were going into doing the heist, they were going from right to left, and so they were going against the flow, essentially crossing traffic, like you're saying. And so psychologically, that sets up the audience to go, something's not right, something's wrong.
But they also had a scene where they're imagining doing the whole heist.
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
that was interesting too.
And things are going so well, and
everything's
it's just so
very slick,
beautifully done, and it was very fantastical, as if they were actually in Ocean's 11 kind of thing. And then in real life, they got in there, and it didn't play out at all like that was in their head.
Yeah.
But that never happens to me in real life.
No,
I don't have fantastical imaginations at all.
But anyway, but you brought up a question.
Yeah, because I was saying, we were talking about it yesterday, and I didn't realize until after we started discussing everything, is you were going, I wonder what the filmmaker's intent was on the moral of the story. Because you said, it's named American Animal, and that if we were truly Darwinistic, you had talked about how we should be growing and not becoming more animalistic.
Right. Well, so this is where I feel like the themes were a little bit muddled, which is why I feel like The Imposter is fundamentally a better film, because it's clear, it's clearer in focus. American Animals, I think, is more interesting. The production value is definitely there. But thematically, I feel like it kind of splinters off a little bit, and you're not quite sure what's being communicated. And so, like, for example, the primary book that these guys are going after is this big. There were these. Actually, it was several of them. There was like 3 or 4 of these big, lithograph kind of books that had these gigantic Audubon prints, and they were on display in this case, and there was this just very rare collection in a university library. And so they were going after these books, but then there was also, they mentioned several times there was an original first edition copy of The Origin of the Species, which is obviously Darwin's book, right? So, and the quote at the beginning of the film was from Darwin, Origin of the Species. And so and it was mentioned a couple of different times. But what was interesting for me was they were trying to make something out of that. But when it got down to it, one of the guys at the end said, you're told all your life that you're special and all this other stuff. And then it turns out that you're not. Right. And this was this guy in the interview. Now, he can say whatever he wants. I mean, that's his belief system. But it was kind of such a strong point. But the problem is that here these guys are essentially acting like animals. Right. And they're reducing themselves down to base animal instincts and not, violating, trying to steal. They end up
don't ruin everything for everybody.
No, but they end up tying up the librarian, causing problems there. There was all of these issues, right, that was created, and they violated just normal morality, right? And each one of them felt really bad about that.
Yep.
Right. Every single one of them felt really bad about it and communicated remorse for having done it. Well, the problem with evolutionary thought is that if we are animals and our animals is really just base instincts, then why are they? Why are they?
Quandary.
Well, yeah, exactly. Why are they in a moral quandary? Why are they expressing remorse? Because an animal would not do that. So therefore, it was showing that it was demonstrating that actually we're higher than the animals, that we aren't animals. And yet it was interesting because it felt like that's what the story wanted to communicate. But the director seemed to have different belief systems and was kind of pushing it in a different direction. So it ultimately ended up kind of feeling a little clunky for me. Not just because that's not what not just because that's not what I believe, right? It's like, I'm okay with, like, if somebody can express a holistic view of their belief system and give me something to discuss and talk about and at least make cognitive sense, I'm good with whatever, you know what I mean, you believe. But I may not agree with it, but I'll appreciate your point. But the problem with this one was that it felt like the story itself was trying to make another point. And the storyteller wasn't allowing it to go there, if that makes sense.
It does. Because I think that what it was ultimately portraying is that they were all searching for significance.
Right.
They all wanted to do something that mattered, even though what they were doing that was going to matter wasn't a good thing. But they were looking for something that was outside themselves.
Right.
And so I think that that's where we believe that, that's where we get our identity and our significance from God. And so if you don't have that, you're still searching for that. There's still this longing. Even if you have a good home life, you're still longing for something more. And so that was interesting. But then, like you said, they come to the end of everything and they're showing remorse, which also you wouldn't do if you didn't you weren't tied to a divine being that was much higher than you.
Well, right, because that's the Christian belief system is that, man is and does share certain biological, materialistic traits with animals, right? We have physiological makeup, we have biological makeup, we have all of these things that are very similar to animals in general and specifically primates. But then ultimately, when it comes down to it, there is something else other than just the material. And that's the problem that materialists and all of these kind of, modern philosophical thinkers back in the 1800s ultimately end up running into, was like, okay, well, not only does evolution doesn't function or work once you start getting into the quantum mechanics, but it also doesn't function and work because moralistically, it just starts to kind of fall apart, like this movie demonstrates to me. Is it's like, well, they're just going to go in there and act like animals, but then ultimately at the end of the day, they were remorseful like men. So, is man an animal, or is man something more. And that's where Christianity comes in and says, no, we were actually, Yahweh breathed into the dust. And so we are both dust and divine. And so we share a special status on the earth that is above the animals. And I think that movie could have communicated that had the people making the movie believed that, and it doesn't feel like they did.
No.
So
there's a disconnect. What did you like about The Imposter that was better? You felt like it was more clear on everything.
Well, I felt like, there was the search for significance. There was this kind of like, bird, going back to the American Animals, there was just too many, there were too many things that they were trying to aim at that I felt ultimately, whereas it just kind of felt scattershot. So it's like, search for significance, this kind of thing about flight and Audubon and, painting and, artist being a suffering artist. Right. And then there's the the thing that we were talking about, the Darwinism issue and the, animals. And so, it felt like it had everything to make something really good, but it just ended up not being as pointed as it could have been. Whereas The Imposter felt very pointed because it was just telling a story about a guy who pretends to be a missing person. All of a sudden this guy shows up, 3 or 4 years later and convinces this family in Texas that, he's their
missing child.
And you're kind of, that it's not because the guy.
I mean, the name's The Imposter.
Yeah, the guy's telling you it's not, but you're watching the family get kind of bamboozled about it, and then kind of there's a twist at the end. I'm not going to tell you about the twist. You should just go watch the movie. But it was just, there was a much more simpler, singular focus on the film, and it didn't. It just, I don't know. It just felt more holistically pointed. And I didn't go away kind of wondering like what was it they were trying to say.
Right. So the American Animals, much higher production value because it was scripted, because they shot it on really great cameras, named actors, lighting, all that kind of stuff. Yep. And some of not all, but some of the storytelling was a little bit lackluster because they didn't have that resolution kind of thing. Now in The Imposter, less production value. Still good, very good. So neither one of them were bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's still like I would recommend that to anybody that is making anything because I think it's an example of a really, really, really well done documentary.
Right. And so, but I think for us, doing the research on these and then watching a couple other documentaries and films and whatnot, we look forward to hearing your base comments in September when our new film shows up, because we want to hear what you guys like and what we take into consideration, what we were inspired by, because you always say that, you get to emulate other artists.
Yeah. No, exactly. You get to pick your own DNA as an artist. You get to pick who your mother and father are creatively and, kind of beg, borrow, and steal from people and really as an homage, to who you appreciate and who you want to emulate. And so
a few years back, this is quite a few years back now, we got to do an art documentary and we got to study some really amazing artists and get a whole art history education. But we got to go and see some private Vincent van Gogh museum pieces and everything. And then you get to see who he was inspired by. And so they had not only his work, but the people that he was inspired by's work was at the museums.
It's really cool.
And so you could see the flavors in his work from what they had done. So it's going to be really awesome.
So knowing that I'm watching these types of documentaries, that we're watching these types of documentaries and then turning around and, making one over the next 9 months, we're going to be slamming out another documentary, and I'm looking forward to hearing what people think, because it's completely different than what we've done before. Everything that we've done before has been really great interviews, but then some cinema verite kind of stuff with the Trump I know, but and then Reawakening had some of that as well. Which cinema verite just means capturing people doing stuff and trying to show real life as good as well as you can. But where this one is going to be a lot of reenactments and
a spy thriller kind of thing.
Kind of a spy thriller kind of thing. So so really, really fun. I'm really looking forward to it. In the middle of writing the script right now. And we'll let you know what it is and when the release is and all of that as soon as we can.
Yep.
But make sure that you like and subscribe and share this and let us know. Again, interact with the comments. Let us know if there's anything that asking if we've watched anything. We love talking about movies. Make suggestions about what you might want us to cover in another podcast. We do these podcasts about once a week now. Occasionally we do more, but it's typical once a week. And
we are getting ready to have Richard Ramsey on.
Yep.
From Unsung Hero.
So the new movie Unsung Hero coming out.
It's going to be pretty crazy because Richie and Matt look a lot alike, and they think a lot alike, and they talk really a lot weird. Alike. And so when we were at dinner, I was just like,
Richie has become a good friend, and he's definitely like a brother from a different mother kind of situation. It's really weird. Mm-hmm. Like Joy was looking at us, and we were like, all of a sudden he would say something, and she's looking at him like. That
That's a Matt thought.
Almost exactly like what Matt would say, and then he would say something, and then we're looking at each other like that. Or like I would say something, and he would look at me like, "Wait a minute, hold on a second, what?" So, but no, he's a good dude, and we're looking forward to interviewing him, and we're looking forward to the movie too. We've heard a couple
Unsung Heroes coming out pretty soon
in April. I think it's April 24th. So mark your calendars. It's a story of.
Rebecca St. James family.
Rebecca St. James family, the Small Bones, and For King and Country, who's a big band now. And they're a lot of people. Some people don't know that is that they're the brothers of Rebecca St. James, the little brothers of Rebecca St. James, and so their family and kind of their origin story, really.
Yep.
And so Richie is really excited about it, co-director on it, and we're going to be interviewing him about that. So.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, until next time.
All right.
God bless.